special guest. I'll say that again. And good morning to our special guest.
Good morning, to our special guest.
Morning.
Morning, Dusty.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Looking well. And there's Mary as well.
Ray.
Hello, Mary.
Hi, everybody.
Hello,
Good to
Mary.
see
Hi,
you.
Mary.
Good morning, Mary.
Can you hear him?
Can you hear me?
Can you hear me, Mother?
Deaf as well as deaf.
You're in the right group then.
Got me, please. You'll hear better.
Just
Good morning.
good morning.
Morning, John.
Good morning.
Morning.
Right, shall we get cracking, everyone?
Why not? Why
There
not?
may still be one or two to come in, but we'll catch up with them as and when. So, good morning, Dusty.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I know that Chris is just going to do an introduction, but the one burning question that I think we all have is, why is it Dusty?
Right, we go back many years, obviously. So when I was born
Yeah,
at the end
right.
of November, and in the good old days when dads didn't come and see their birth, they waited a couple of days before they came in. When I was cradled in my blankets and my head just popping out of the blankets, and as farmers, it just looked like on the top of my head that I was born in a barn, because as my hairstyle is very similar to how it was when I was born, nearly bald, with the fluffy hair, and he says, "Bloody hell, he looks dusty," and then the name has stuck since then.
Right from birth.
Yeah.
Right, okay, that clears that up. And for the ones who don't know, it's William Henry, isn't it?
It is, yes.
Yes. So,
Does anybody call you that?
No, I had an odd master or two who used to call me William at school, but mostly it was Hare in those days.
Yeah.
And,
Of course
and
it
it
was.
was, it was more sternly than that, really. Usually when I was in trouble. Yeah.
yeah,
And when you visited the palace, no doubt. William Henry Hare, when you picked up your MBE, yeah.
Yeah, that was it. That's how I was announced. Yeah.
And John Douglas Longstaff is another one down the bottom right-hand corner.
yeah.
Thank you, Ian, for reminding me.
Great days. Great days.
It is.
So, Chris, I'll sit back to Chris now to do an introduction and to get things moving.
Okay, Keith. Well, first of all, Dusty, second time this morning I've spoken to you. How are you? And great that you're on our call. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
No, I'm very well. I'm looking at a good English cricket day, aren't I, outside? I think I don't know whether the weather's the same at Sheffield, but here in Nottingham, it's pouring it down.
Yeah. We've reverted to true September back end weather. Dusty, just so that the group has an appreciation, I was just going to say, from my point of view, from knowing you, which goes a long way back to when you were playing in the Notts second team, and you got to know Mike, you got to know my dad, and quite a few of the Retford lads who were playing for Notts seconds. My first recollections were watching, and watching a game and you'd be playing. And then my dad did the right thing, did the decent thing and recruited you in 1972 to play for Retford. Lots of things happened. One of the things which I will just quickly remind people of is you did help Retford get to the semi-final of the cup. And there you are on the back row, if everyone can see that. So you just the proof that you did play for Retford. And then towards the end of your cricketing career, Dad re-recruited you in 1979, and I did have the honour of playing in the same team as you for Retford in that period. And again, just so people know, you did actually keep wicket as well as bat and bowl, and there you are with my dad keeping wicket for Retford in 1979. And that's a picture that is always displayed at Mary's house. Great picture. In that game, my brother, who you know terribly well, my brother took 9 for 49 in that game, and you helped him with a catch. So thank you for that all those years on. And really, that's sort of our association through the Retford side, through the amateur and professional side of your cricket career. And I just wanted the group to have that appreciation. So it was great being a teammate for a few games, and thank you for what you did for Retford, because you did very well in the 20 odd games that you played for the club.
Me too.
Very kind of you. Thank you very much.
Not at all. So if that gives people a rough idea, and there's so many things, so many stories, but I'll pass back to Keith and go from there, Dusty, if that's all right with you, mate.
Yeah, no problem. Fire
Okay.
away.
Can I
Okay.
do my memory?
Yeah.
Well, it's not just me, because I know that there are some people on today who've got a better appreciation of rugby. Ian being one of them. Ian was a decent player, and
He says.
He says.
and yeah, he says he was a decent player anyway, and he played and was mentored by an England international himself. So really, Ian, I ought to let you kick off and ask Dusty some of the questions related. Fire away, Ian.
Well, that's an honour and a privilege. Thanks very much. Just to put it into context, the British Lion Keith mentioned was the late Alan Ashcroft. Did you ever come across him by any chance, Dusty?
No, I didn't know. I know the name. Yeah.
Played for Waterloo,
Yeah.
first international against Wales of the Cliff Morgan era. And he played for Waterloo with Dick Greenwood, or mentored Dick Greenwood.
Yeah.
So those good days. I played for Liverpool.
A proper club, but not the posh club of Liverpool.
But my one anecdote of Nottingham is I lost 4 hours in Nottingham after a second 15 trip to Nottingham. And in those days, because of the coach journey, that was a big away fixture, but I was only 18, 19, what have you. And I was plied with quite a lot of alcohol by the hospitable Nottingham people. And I was literally, together with a school chum of mine, poured back onto the coach at some late hour at night. And 4 hours, as I said, is still lost in Nottingham somewhere. Anyway, back to your good self. Perhaps you could just tell us some of the most enjoyable features of your time playing for initially Nottingham, then on to playing for Leicester Tigers and your tours abroad. I mean, 25 internationals for England tells its own story, but it'd be nice to hear it from your perspective.
Well, it's it's very difficult to start, really, because I've been very lucky. I've enjoyed my sport, whether I was playing cricket or rugby, and tennis. In my younger days, I just enjoyed playing sport, and it didn't matter whatever game it was. I just enjoyed turning up and playing, and that was very much really my story, and that's probably why I continued playing rugby up until I was 36, and cricket. And I can't really remember when I finished cricket, but my body told me to. I was just playing for the Newark Rugby Club in the Newark Evening League, and I had a young man opening the batting with me, and of course I enjoyed just playing a bit of evening league, but he wasn't hitting boundaries. He was making me run all the time, and then after I'd had about 4 pints in the pub and then got home, my knees were about killing me. So I decided that was the time to finish playing cricket. So no, rugby's been a great part of my life, and still was when I was a farmer. Both my sons weren't interested in the farm. We were more sheep and cattle dealers than farmers, really. But so when I packed up on the farm, I went to work at Leicester Tigers as the academy manager back in 2000. So and I retired in Northampton in 2017. So rugby's been a very big part of my life, and I've enjoyed every minute of it. You can go back to kicking the winning penalty against Wales in 1980, and look, there's numerous stories, but I could go on all day. But
usually
there's no real special games. Everyone was special because it was enjoyable.
And some of the characters you played with, I mean, when you tour on British Lions, you were Jim Telfer, Willie Jock McBride,
Yeah.
So, some of the up and comers who went on, like Clive Woodward, to manage England. You were with very special people, weren't you?
Yeah. No, look, Willie John McBride and Jim Telfer were special. Very lucky to have Willie John McBride as the manager on that tour, and Jim Telfer as a coach, really good coach, real grumpy old Scotsman, loved his forwards. And he was most of my days at Leicester, we had a coach called Chalky White, and sides depend on really good coaches, and those two were very special in my time. It's funny because I've got a real good friendship with one of the Lions players, and it's one where England versus Scotland wasn't the most friendlier matches, and the Scots hated us and we hated the Scots. But I've ended up very good friends with Colin Deans, who was the hooker on that trip, and went on to captain Scotland and play for Scotland for about 70 odd games, which is unique in those days of playing that many games. So some good people. Obviously, Clive Wood was on that trip, and there was a guy, Paul Dodge. I don't think he was on that trip, but you played with some really good players.
Yeah, I'm focusing on your rugby for the moment, so forgive me, everybody else, but perhaps we can move to cricket a little bit later with somebody who knows a bit more about that, like a certain Mr. Hall. But I was particularly interested in people like Jim Telfer. How did you get on with him? Because he looked like a really dour Scot to me, and probably difficult to work with.
No, I mean, that's what he comes over like that, but
doesn't he?
He's meticulous in his work on the rugby field, and I was always interested, even as a player. I was always interested in tactics and things like that, and where you were on parts of the field to do what, and it wasn't just about just turning out and playing. I mean, even the amateur days, we talked about running down in different corridors on the rugby pitch and things like that. So we would advance, or Leicester and then obviously Jim Telfer for the Lions, they were advanced as coaches, and it makes a difference. And like Clive Woodward on the Lions tour, on the England winning the World Cup, he himself wasn't a great coach, but he was a good organizer, and he got the coaches around him to deliver with those great players that they were there at that time, and that's what you have to do. That's where if I come to England now, I am baffled at the way England are playing the game, and it was a great result for us on Saturday. But we've got very young coaches, inexperienced coaches. You know, Steve Borthwick has been around a while, but the rest of his group are very junior in their coaching, and it does question where we're going to be. England are at the present moment. I don't think the RFU have a lot to answer for with how they're running the game in this country.
It does look like a mixed bag. I mean, there's one that we all particularly like. One of the coaches, Kevin Sinfield, because of all the work he's done for MND.
Yeah.
But to have a rugby league guy essentially as your defense coach, I could see the merits of it, but it does almost betray a weakness in our coaching fraternity. With
I go back to Clive. He had Phil Larder, who was a rugby league man. So we've had rugby league coaches on defence from sort of the early 2000s. So
France has got quite a good one. Sorry.
Yes. France have got a very good one, and he's English. And he should be doing England.
Yeah.
And that's nothing against Kevin Sinfield. He's only done one season as coaching. So he's learning. He's got a lot to learn yet. And, really, he's coaching England defence. He hasn't even really learned the game yet properly. So France, well, with most of England, Ireland have got Andy Farrell as their head coach, so we've got the best English coaches are elsewhere.
I'm just looking through the list of names, guys, that on the British Lions tour of 1983, which perhaps in terms of results we might gloss over, but there was one guy on the list who I thought after he retired from rugby became one of the best commentators and pundits, and perhaps the most impartial I've ever heard. You know who I'm referring to, of course. Eddie Butler. Did you make any real friendship with Eddie Butler at all, Dusty?
No. Well, I'm one of those guys. I don't fall out with anybody. On the field, I'm a.
Well, you've got a lot in front of you to work with. I tell you.
Very competitive, and but off the field, I was always enjoyed a pint with the opposition and had a chat. So that was always been my philosophy, and that's what I did when I was doing academy rugby. I said, if we lost the game, we'd applaud the opposition off and look them in the eye and think, next time we're going to go on the field, we're going to beat you, but let's go off the field and just enjoy the company. And I need to put my charger in me. I've just got my battery's running low.
It don't look as if he's battery operated.
No. I thought he was clockwork actually, but no.
Yeah. Amazing.
Technology's moved on. Yeah.
What he taught you, the battery boy.
Yeah, we're done.
Really, really dredging your memory now. How did you get into the game? Was it school or what?
In those days, I mean, my father was a rugby player.
Who for?
A club side called Southwell. And he played for Nottinghamshire as well, a few games. But he enjoyed his rugby, and obviously, in the days when sort of the only games on television were the internationals.
Yes.
On BBC, and I realise now that why he used to buy me a lot of sweets on that day was that I was busy eating sweets and not talking, so he could watch the rugby in peace.
We'll try that with Keith at tomorrow's meeting.
Keep frozen.
And then I passed my 11 plus and went, and that's what my parents wanted me to do. Was pass me 11 plus and go to the grammar school at Newark, the Magnus Grammar School at Newark, and where we played rugby and cricket. And and really, that's what I did at the grammar school. I didn't do too much in my books.
Yeah. Yes. I can resonate with that from personal experience. School was all about playing rugby, or in my cadet days, it was a cadet force, and that led to my joining the Air Force. So, you know, school has a lot of influence on you, but it's not necessarily about academics, is it?
No,
Yeah.
no. We're cricket wise at school. We had a teacher called Chris Grant who played a few games for Notts first team. But he was our coach, and he was outstanding. So, you know, you rely on those sort of people in your lifetime to be lucky enough to have been coached by good people.
We had a guy come give a talk to us before COVID. This was, and we used to meet in one of two libraries in Sheffield. There was a guy called Ted Elmsley that he played for some football outfit, Sheffield United. I think it was Sheffield United, and he
Candy
also
Striped Clowns
and played cricket. And he must have gone through the same problems you had. Not so much divided loyalties, but trying to argue with the management. Which season do I play through, you know, and complete the season before I go to the other sport? Did you have a lot of those tensions?
Well, no, because I left school to be a professional cricketer, so I had to be a cricketer foremost, and before rugby. But I was only playing for Nottingham in those days, but it was quite funny, really. The cricket season was May to the end of August, and rugby season was September to at the end of April. So it all fitted in quite well in those days, because that was it. You know, now they play cricket from about March, don't they? I mean, it's incredible that we have games in. We have games.
They don't. Yeah.
Well, they try to, Dusty.
Yeah. So, but then I obviously didn't make the grade at cricket, and I had made the grade at rugby, and then I moved to Leicester, and then obviously, you know, rugby came first, and cricket came second.
I just get the impression that cricket's your favoured sport. Is that right, of the two? Hello.
I love my cricket, and I mean, I go and watch my club side called Collingham most Saturdays of the season, because I just enjoy the cricket. They play in the Notts Premier 2. It was a very good village side. Obviously, the population's too big to be a village anymore, but obviously the cricket's got better as well. But it got to 2 finals of the village Hague competition in the days of the village competition in those days. So it's a beautiful ground at Collingham. If you ever in Newark, pop down just on the Gainsborough Road and go about 3 miles out of Newark. It's what I call a very good acre of land. Yeah.
I know Newark from my Cranwell days. I'm straying into a sport I enjoy thoroughly, but know less about. I'm one of the Luddites that actually is converted to the 100. And there are people on this Zoom meeting who think that is.
Get off.
So,
can you mute him?
Have you
finished yet? Yeah.
I'm going to mute Ian.
You can see where I'm going, Dusty. I'll hand over to the other guys and Chris all in particular. But thanks for sharing that with us. Brilliant.
Dusty, who was the hardest opponent you ever came across in rugby?
Anybody who played in the opposition, I think. No, I mean, look, there's lots of good players that you've played against, and I mean, my first cap was against Wales in 1974, and it's the only English team to beat the Welsh in the 70s. And you came across. I mean, they were the Gareth Edwards, the Phil Bennetts, the Gerald Davis, JJ Williams, JPR, Mervyn Davis. These were all players that played for Wales who were world-class players. And I suppose in them And then I didn't play against Wales again until 1980, and that's obviously a very nice result for us when we beat them with 3 penalties to their 2 tries. Because in those days, tries were only worth 4 points, so we gave them a good hammering, 9-8. So yeah, so if I said anything, it was obviously Wales was the tough. You know, I won't say anybody individually, but the toughest team to play was Wales.
Talented, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
They certainly, the other day in the World Cup, they fought like tigers to keep the Fijians out at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well,
There was an interesting article. Sorry, there was an interesting article. It's picking up on your point on the hardness of sides and difficulty. There was an interesting article recently, and I'd be interested in your opinion, that they're saying that rugby union is moving towards the 60-minute game, by which they mean they're so well trained, they're so fit, they're stronger, they're heavier, and the tackles are so fierce and intense that they can only keep it up for 60 minutes, and they're having to bring the second team on. Do you have a view on that?
Oh, look, I mean, it's changed dramatically. The game has since it's gone professional. And of course, they are physically bigger and stronger because they're all, you know, they train every day. And I mean, it's how you view the American football. They were professional lot longer before, and you just only have to look at their physicality, and they're not that stupid putting on all that armor and
No.
helmets, because you know, it is physically, you know, in fact, probably too much now for the big forwards, and we're seeing these sort of new ways of going about that by with the 8 players on the bench. You're having 6 forwards, so you know, it's changing the game. It's very physical, very big, and as you say, the knocks and that. I mean, it's you know, it's like going into a lot of car crashes. Some of those forwards with the hits they're having. So you know, and then you know, the game. People will not play the game as long as we did when we played, because their bodies won't cope with it. It's as simple as that.
Do you think?
So,
not that we
yeah,
could stop it. Do you think we could? Do you think we've gone a bit too far? Because some of the rulings that are coming in for very good reasons to overcome head injuries or prevent head injuries.
Yeah.
How do you think we've gone a wee bit too far in our intensity?
No, not really. I mean, if the game, the trouble was we were as we talked about it. We brought rugby league coaches in, and what we've done is do 2-man tackles, where in the good old days it was sort of 1-man tackle.
Yeah.
And so we've got, you know, one going high and one going low. But that they've got to start to change that and make sure that the player always goes low. Head injuries. What annoys me about we've got 2 different games being played now. We've got the professional game, which is completely different to the amateur game, and the amateur game hasn't changed one iota. You've got players turn up and play, and you don't see the head injuries in those games as you do in the professional game. And you know, I think really we're getting to a stage where we've got to look at 2 different sets of rules for the professionals and for the amateurs, to keep the game playing. So, because in the amateur game, if we start having referees sending people off for high tackles, you know, we're stopping people playing, and they're not doing it on purpose in the grassroots rugby. But professional rugby, we've got to look after the players better. Yeah.
It does say, I remember seeing you fullback for England, and when you know that the ball's being belted high towards you, and you're looking and you see 3 New Zealanders bearing down on you, what's the thought?
Well, you don't, because you don't you don't know who's coming at you because you've got your full view and full concentration is on the ball, and you know, and that's your job to catch it. So you know, it's like anybody, you know, on cricket, rugby, you know, when that ball's in the air, you're there to catch it, and then worry about when you catch it, then worry about getting hit. But I was very lucky because I think in my end of my career, we had a good number 8 called Dean Richards, who was an uncanny, one of the most unfittest players ever, but always in the right place at the right time. And you used to catch a high ball, and then suddenly this big bear of a man would come and just put his arms around you and protect you from the opposition. Yeah, he kept my career going for another 2 seasons, I think. Yeah.
I listened to him speak at Lord Wandsworth School. A really funny guy. But Lord Wandsworth is where I've forgotten his name. Standoff.
Johnny Wilkinson.
Johnny Wilkinson was school, and he played in centre in those days before they moved into standoff. Yeah.
Peter, have you got a question?
Yeah. Dusty, you say that you become great friends with Colin Deans. He's a hooker. You're a fullback. How come you've got so close together?
Well, I can't. It's just one of those things, you know. And I mean, and uncannily, he moved from Scotland down to. He lives near between Stamford and Kettering now. So you know, he moved down here, but he was just a guy. We seemed to click on when we went on the Lions tour. We enjoyed each other's company, and that friendship has stayed on.
Right, thanks.
Yeah, it's when you went on the Lions tour, it was to New Zealand.
Yes.
Had you been abroad playing rugby before?
Yeah. No, I was lucky. You know, I'd been with England to what we've done: Japan, Fiji, and Tonga, Argentina, USA, Canada. I've been to South Africa. I've been with my club side to Australia. So yeah, no, touring you get used to. I mean, we're very lucky. I was brought up in the right time, wasn't I? Because that was cheap travel, and we was able to go on tours. So it was. I was very lucky.
Cheap travel, cheap beer.
Well, yeah. I don't know whether it's cheap when you finish the night, but there we go.
When you finished, what was your setup when you were taking the kicks? Johnny Wilkinson had this kissing his hands or whatever else he used.
Yeah, everybody has their own. It's for whatever you feel comfortable with it. Like in rugby, it's a team game. The only other people who don't play as a team in that really is the hooker who throws in, and the kicker at goal, and you have to get yourself sort of out of your zone and into an individual zone and concentration. And so you focus on where you think the ball's going to go through. I had sort of a vision to where I wanted the ball to be kicked, and you place the ball down. We only had God's stuff to put it on, and now they have plastic. So, but you still got to. I mean, I think most kickers will look at what we call the sweet spot on the ball. That's where you're going to kick it, and then you sort of visualize where the ball's going to go, and then you just compose yourself, and then hopefully the ball goes through the post.
Yeah, it's just I don't recall anybody else having a routine like Johnny Wilkinson. Seemed to be the first one that had this sort of almost rehearsed routine before he took the kick.
I think if you see footage of myself, you'll see that I'm similar. I used to chuck the grass up in the air to see which way the wind's blowing, and I sort of went through the same sort of ritual before I goal kicked. Yeah.
All right.
That must be one of the, sorry, Dusty, that must be one of the most tense experiences you go through on a rugby pitch. It's even worse than a footballer taking a penalty, I think, when you've got a whole stadium concentrating on you. As you say, it's a team game, but for that moment, that minute, a minute and a half, whatever, pressure must be intense on the kicker.
I was very lucky. Yeah, but I was very lucky. Once I got onto the pitch, I was not nervous. I was always, as like I think all sportsmen are, before the actual game and that you've got nerves. I think you would. I wouldn't think anybody would say differently. But luckily, as I got on the field, I didn't suffer from nerves. So I was.
Yeah, that's good.
I classed myself very lucky on that aspect. And so you know, you went through the routine. You weren't nervous about taking it, you know, and because sometimes I watch people's body language because I was sort of like a scout as well as an academy manager. I look at people's body language quite closely to see how they cope with things, and you know, and then you do see people who are quite nervous.
Yeah, yeah.
I played once with, I won't mention his name, but he was county standard prop forward, tight head, and he was sick every game before the match.
Yeah.
Just getting rid of it.
Yeah.
That was the way he handled it.
Yeah, and there's obviously I've been in changing rooms where people are, you know, being having to go to the toilet and being ill. Yeah,
But once they're on the pitch,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm like that before I go to see Wednesday. Yeah.
yeah, you've got every reason to be.
Yeah, John, I think I'd be sick if I had to go and watch.
Even worse after.
Yeah.
Keith, you got less
Even
than a
worse
minute.
after the match.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah.
Watch it, Dave. Don't think I didn't hear that.
Yeah.
Less than a minute. Now, Dusty, I understand that you
See,
maybe got to shoot
see you
off.
tomorrow.
Are you still having to go?
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately. So
Yeah, what I'm going to do, I'm going to just sort of ring him and just leave it so I can have another 15 minutes into the second one.
all
And then-
right, that's great. So,
So I'll you know, if I sort of leave at 10 to 12,
Yeah, that's
that'll be fine.
perfect. So
Okay.
Well done,
we'll wrap up this half and we'll see you all in 5 minutes.